to with other websites. We're now joined by the Hall of Famer John McClain. And the Texans, John, take care of their business. At times I wondered who could get out of their own way, but they took care of their business, and it's a nice win for them. They needed it.
Well, excuse me, first, I would like to say, how about those fighting Baylor Bears? And I think they're going to steamroll U of H, beat Kansas, win out and go 8-4. I'm hoping they end up at the Texas Bowl. I've seen projections, LSU. I've seen Vanderbilt, who they beat here a few years ago. Anyway, yes, the Texans, they struggle on offense in the second half, as they've done now for 5 consecutive games before they scored that late touchdown, that bizarre strip sack. Tyler Guyton trying to pick up the ball and run, which was ridiculous. Jalen Petrie knocking the snot out of him to force a fumble. Petrie, what a game he had. He got screwed royally by the officials calling a personal foul when it shouldn't be. And you know, when the rules expert, Gene Steratore, comes on here and says it should have been, you know they're right. I've never seen officiating bad in the NFL as I do this year, worse than any time in my 48 years of covering the NFL. The Cowboys, you know, they're on a pace right now to set the NFL record for most points allowed at home in a season. And right now that record is owned, average points per game, by the 1960 Cowboys in their inaugural season. And, you know, there's all kind of levels of bad. We know Mike McCarthy's going to be fired. I'm still stunned they're not playing Trey Lance. You know, I thought last night they gave up a 4 for Trey Lance and they won't play him. And while Joe Mixon's running through him and over him, they could have given up. Texans gave up 7 to get him from Cincinnati, even though he scored 12 touchdowns last year and had almost 1,400 yards as a runner and receiver. Cowboys could have done that. So the deficiencies, and now in their injury-plagued offensive line, you know, and in the running game, which we've all known since the off season, are so glaring. But as I tell you guys every week, the more you lose, the higher you draft pick in every round. That's the light at the end of the tunnel. And so, but I'm still confused about why they're not playing Trey Lance after giving up that 4th round pick for him, to see if he can be the backup next year, or if he looks good on tape, even if they lose, they might can trade him for a 3. This is a bad year to try to get a quarterback in the draft and maybe free agency. And the Cowboys, of course, they may need a quarterback, but they're not going to get one because of Dak Prescott and his contract.
John, I have a simple theory on what's going on with the Cowboys. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea how to work the cap like other teams. They have no idea what trade value is. They gave up a 4th for Jonathan Mingo. They gave up a 4th for Trey Lance when they could have gotten him for way less, or they could have gotten a better player than that for a 4th round pick. They didn't get the proper value for Amari Cooper. Like, this is a mess. Like, I've never thought this before, but obviously Jerry the GM has always been a problem. But now I think Jerry the owner is too, which I don't think was the case before now.
Now, it's strange to me because of winning 12 games 3 years in a row and this year, and Jerry does not make those decisions by himself. Somebody is advising him bad. Well, we got to give the 49ers a 4 for Trey Lance as competition. And yes, I know we liked him coming out of North Dakota State, even though he only played 1 game his last year because of COVID. And you're right, they could have gotten him for less. But Jerry's not in there doing those negotiations. Somebody, whether it's Mike McCarthy saying, man, we really got him. We really need him to be a backup. Well, they didn't. Cooper Rush is a good backup. You know, he didn't play bad last night. He had some bad plays, but he wasn't terrible. He threw for 357 yards, I think, and despite a fierce pass rush that was bashing him all over the place in the second round. So somebody is telling Jerry, no, we don't need to contact Derrick Henry because we can't afford $8 million under a cap, when they could have. You see the 49ers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, they bring in expensive players. but they know what they're doing. Whoever's their cap expert, I don't think he's making decisions, but Jerry is getting bad advice this year from people on contracts, on personnel, and on trades.
John, how far away from being an NFL head coach do you think Deion Sanders would be? And I'm not trying to go crazy here. I know Michael Irvin and Colin Cowherd kind of talked about it a little bit because Irvin's such buddies with him, and the Cowboys are going through what they're going through. But there's also Deion's just being asked about it in general because of the success they're having and that Shedeur and Travis Hunter are moving on. Like, is that just totally unrealistic, or do you think there's actually more opportunity there than maybe people would think?
Okay, you got to think about Deion besides what's happening on the field. And he's doing a great job. And they win the Big 12. They're in the playoffs. And if it wasn't for Curt Cignetti at Indiana, he'd be a leading candidate to be Coach of the Year. And he should be in that group right behind Cignetti. But if Cignetti goes to Ohio State and gets his brains beat in, all those people talking about, yeah, you're 10-0 for the first time in history, but you played an easy schedule, they're going to come out. Plus, they might lose the next game. And if they get in the playoff, they could lose that. So don't rule out Deion, especially with Big 12 being so mediocre. I still can't believe Utah lost at home to Kansas, but they've been barely surviving as it was. But Deion, you can't control the media in the NFL like he does there. You can't let your players go over and antagonize opposing fans and your son flash his Rolex. When they were Tech and he complained to Jerry Maguire about fans throwing things, and said, Jerry, I think Joey told him, well, tell your players to quit going over there after every touchdown and antagonizing them. And you can't do that in the NFL. So Deion would have to change his coaching tactics, not behind the scenes, but publicly. You can't survive in the NFL coaching the way he does off the field, like he does college. I think those methods are perfect for college. Some people that know him think he wants to go back to Florida State. You know, I don't know after Florida State goes unbeaten, Paul, if they're going to fire the guy after one bad season. But I could see Deion, if he doesn't have a quarterback next year, he can't take a chance on going 4-8 next year. He'd be better off to sit out for a year and then try to get another job, if indeed that's what he wants to do. You know, Deion's got to be making money, hell, off those Aflac commercials with him and Saban. No telling what they're making off of that. So I don't see him in the NFL, but a guy like Jerry Jones I'd rather bring in. This is something I was told last night, and see what you guys think about. In the pregame warm-ups, when you're supposed to be working and getting ready for the game on the field, that CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons were over signing autographs for fans. Now, I haven't seen that, and I think that's a bad look, and I think it's bad for McCarthy. I can't believe Mike Zimmer. Oh, and Diggs was doing it too. That Mike Zimmer would let him get away with that unless they all know they're fired. And I know Bill Belichick wouldn't put up with that. Mike Vrabel wouldn't put up with that. I'm hoping that Jerry will hire Mike Vrabel. Titans obviously made a big mistake in firing him 2 years after he's coached a year. But McCarthy knows he's gone. And it's just a matter, does Jerry bring in a former head coach? Does he bring in a hot coordinator? Or does he go after Bill Belichick? Because people think Belichick's coming back.
Nobody ever thought that Parcells would work out there, and it wasn't perfect, but they did. They got along. But is Belichick different than Parcells in certain ways?
Oh, yeah. And I was covering the NFL then, and Parcells told me that 2 times. One time was when Jerry wanted T.O. Parcells didn't really want him, but he said, hey, if you want to bring him in here, I'll coach him the best I can. The other one was Eddie George, also at the end of his career. He didn't really want him. Was it James Jones? Is that his name? Young running back,
yeah.
Parcells like.
Yep.
And he wanted him. But he said, if you want Eddie George, I'll coach him. Now, Belichick doesn't have as forceful a personality and as outgoing as Parcells is. But the Bill we're seeing in all the media outlets is not the Bill who would be the head coach and that we would see. But Belichick says, "Oh, I don't have to have total control," and maybe he doesn't when he gets the job. But can you imagine a general manager? Belichick says, "I don't like that guy. I don't want to draft him." That GM go, "Well, I'm going to draft him because I like him." No, he would intimidate the heck out of most people, just like Parcells did. But Parcells, at that point in his career, he was able to roll with the punches and be more flexible than he had been earlier in his career. And I'm guessing Belichick would be too.
All right, John, so the Texans needed a win. They got one. I thought that at times during that game, I heard a little bit about him. I thought C.J. Stroud is either spooked, sometimes rushed his throws because I know he hasn't had great protection. But there was a time in the middle of that game, if Dallas would have had any kind of a, I don't want to say heartbeat because they're playing hard, or anything at all, that game could have gotten away from Houston. Is that just kind of how they've played the last few weeks?
Well, they led Detroit by 16 points at halftime and lost on a 52-yard field goal with no time left. They led the Packers, lost on a field goal with no time left. And those are, two NFC North teams. And in their last game, that Detroit game, if he had hit a wide-open Tank Dell in the end zone, instead of hesitating and then the ball was intercepted, they would have beaten the Lions. But the fact is he's been hit so much, and especially up the middle, that he's expecting it. Now, last night he got rid of the ball quicker. Well, Micah Parsons had one assist. The rest was goose eggs. Now, he got some pressure, but he didn't hit him. He didn't knock him down. He didn't have a tackle for loss. And the Cowboys had one sack, one knockdown, and two tackles for loss. So the offensive line played better, but Stroud's been off target. I call it discombobulated. Now, if that 77-yard touchdown had been good on the first play to Nico Collins, his stats would have looked gaudy. But the fact is, especially in the second half, he has not been on target like he was last year. And yes, Nico Collins missed 5 games. Stephon Diggs is out for the season, missed the last 3. Joe Mixon missed 2.5 games. But the fact is, it doesn't matter if your passes are just a little bit off because you're rushing. And I've seen it didn't happen early in the season when they were 5-1, but man, when they started getting killed at Green Bay and that interior lineman, they were bamboozled by stunt that they couldn't pick up. He hasn't been the same. His rating's down to 88 after being 100 last season. And this stretch of the Cowboys, the Titans, and the Jaguars, they've got to win those 3. And they need a couple of games on offense that is very smooth consistently, because then they go their bye week and they come out home against Miami, at Kansas City, home against Baltimore, as people are saying it's a Beyonce concert on a Christmas Day on Netflix, and they've got a football game in there too. And then they close it up at Tennessee. So they got to be, I don't think they'll beat Kansas City, Baltimore. They've never beaten Baltimore, but they still have a chance to finish 11-6 if they win the games they're supposed to.
John, thank you very much. And you're right, your Baylor Bears, they're on a roll, and heck, all of a sudden, not just becoming bowl eligible with bigger fish to fry.
Yes, they do. I think they're going to win out. The Cougars are wearing their Columbia blue rip-off to the Oilers last year. The NFL told them don't do it again. They're doing it, defying the NFL, but I don't think it's going to matter. Sick 'em Bears.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Hall of Famer. Oh, my